Hello everyone, and welcome to this culture webinar. My name is Jerome Paris-Brassens, and I am an executive director at Walking the Talk. And Walking the Talk is the culture division of ZRG Consulting. And I'm very pleased here today to have with me two very important people from Vestas. We've got Niels de Baar. And Niels, you are the president of what we call the North Central European region at Vestas. So we'll probably be calling it the NCE region in this webinar. And you're also group senior vice president. And we've got Henrietta Gable, who is here with us today and who is senior vice president, global talent management. So welcome to the two of you. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today. At Walking the Talk, we are very purpose-driven. So for us, it's really important to think of purpose. And one of the reasons why we're very excited to have you with us today, and one of the reasons we've loved working with you, is that Vestas is a very purpose-driven organization. And for those of you in the audience who don't know what Vestas does, Vestas builds and deploys sustainable energy solutions. And in your case, these are wind farms. And so this is really important for us. You've been ranked as the most sustainable company in the world in 2022, which is really important. And as we started working with you in 22, actually the geopolitical situation in Europe was changing. I remember that very clearly. And it became really important that Europe could become as independent as possible in terms of energy supply. So at Vestas, you are changing the energy landscape in the world and in Europe. And that's one of the reasons why we loved supporting you on the culture journey. So two questions today that I'd like to explore with the two of you. The first one is that you have been able to achieve something that most organizations would call the Holy Grail, which is actually measuring the impact of the work on culture. It's actually really hard to do. And we at Walking the Talk, we struggle to do that sometimes. But in your case, you've been able to do that. So we want to explore that a little bit. And the second question is, I suppose, the link between culture and engagement, because they're two different things, but they are linked with each other. And in your case, that link was very clear. So without further ado, I'm going to ask you a few questions. We'll filter questions also from the audience, from the Q&A. I would encourage everybody in the audience to start writing your questions in the Q&A, and we will take those questions as we go through the webinar. My first question would be probably to you, Niels. Henrietta, please feel free to jump in if you wish. Niels, if we start from the results, and I'm thinking engagement scores, what's been happening to those scores over the last 12 months? Tell us more.
Yes, thank you, Jeroen. Well, we measure these results on a regular basis, and we actually had two questionnaires in this period sent out. And we have been struggling by getting the satisfaction up, and also what we call the employee net promoter score. The answer to the question, would you recommend Vestas as a great place to work? However, in the last 12 months, we saw material improvements, and on the satisfaction, we have been able to increase by 5 percentage points to 75, which is really a trend we're breaking. And on the net promoter score, we even were able to increase by 17 points. So yeah, we could say, as I said, a material improvement. And I have to also make clear, I mean, this is a fairly big organization. It's around 8,500 employees. And what was always very hard for us to reach, also with the programs to improve satisfaction and the net promoter score, is to also reach the blue collar workers. So the people, the service technicians, the people who do the installation of the wind turbines, and that's the vast majority of our employee base, the manufacturing workers. And with this program now, we have been able to see improvements across the board. So white collar blue workers in all functions, in sales, in installations, and in service. So yeah, very happy with the results, Jeroen.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Niels. And the point you're making about reaching people on the field, so what we call them blue collar workers, but people on the field they're always a hard population to reach out to. And Henriette, I remember that the first time we spoke, you had that question. You said, well, it's all very well. It's not about people in the office, right? But it's about people. I mean, in your case, the wind, the turbines, people have gone and got service them onshore, offshore. Hard to reach those people that were on the field all the time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we
yeah.
were. Yeah, so what was your question, Jerome?
So my question to you is now that Niels has said, okay, so we see the eNPS scores, satisfaction scores go up really a lot. I think there's been two measurements, right, in the last 12 months or so. But I remember starting speaking with you and starting to work with you. It was, I think, in May 2022. So what was the starting point and what were you struggling with at the time?
Yeah, yeah, and maybe it goes to the history as well that I have been working as the head of people and culture in NCE for many years, and now I changed to a new role. So if you wonder why I'm heading up global talent management and sit with you today, that's the reason why. But yeah, we were quite concerned about what we saw in the organization, and we could clearly see for the last couple of years that the scores was going down. We had a demotivated workforce, particularly out in the field. They were really, really not happy for working for Vestas, and we couldn't move the needle. We tried anything what was in our toolbox. So it was quite clear that we had to find out what was the root cause for why they were not engaged, why they didn't recommend Vestas as a great place to work, and why they were not happy at work. So that was one of the reasons why, and for sure we spent significant time, you and I designed the survey results and all the focus group looking mostly into our service technicians where we have a big workforce there.
Because you had been doing things that you had been for quite a while, tried to work on those scores, right? You had done a lot of activities.
Yeah, we tried what was in our toolbox to change motivation, get closer to them, have the development talks, be sure they knew the targets, get aligned on the goals, all of that. But there was something underlying deeper down, and most likely as we thought, and we were right in the culture that we had to address, and we had to change our behavior, and particularly also in the leadership team how we interacted out with our frontline workers.
And that was really surprising for us, I suppose, when we started working with you. We found that you have an amazing purpose. And actually, people join the organization in part also for the purpose. It's so strong, right? And still, even with this purpose, you were getting lower engagement scores. So we really had to look under the bonnet to find out what it was. And yeah, the starting point we thought might be actually culture more than anything else.
Yeah, and if we should dig into the results, that was also, it was crystal clear. It was becoming too complex, and we needed to focus on how to embed simplicity in everything that we had to do. That was the overarching frame, and then we had to, of course, build the cultural narrative around that. But people find it quite difficult to work at Vestas.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. I'm seeing there's already questions coming through, so we'll filter them in a minute. We'll let you tell the story first. Thanks, Henriette. Niels, looking at those improvements and everything, what do you think are the 2 or 3 big things that made the biggest difference?
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, I mean, that you made us very much aware through your research work within our region that we actually have a fantastic purpose, and that's a firm basis for our culture, and we should be proud and happy with that. I mean, it was nice to hear that also from the outside and to leverage on that. Having said that, you also did the investigation. How are we living the core values of the company? And we have 4 core values: collaboration, accountability, passion, and simplicity. And it was again insightful that we are doing actually quite well on 3 of those values, on collaboration, accountability, and passion. But we really are not doing okay on simplicity, and already Henriette referred to it. To the extent that it was also, killing motivation. The organization has been growing rapidly, and more, I think processes and ways of working have been more complicated. So I think, and that was, let's say, at the end of the work with you, we came to, to 3 elements we consistently have to work in order to simplify the ways of working. It's consistent prioritization, empowerment, and easy to do business with internally, but also towards our customers. And so I mean, if you would say what is the biggest thing we got out of this, is that we have these 3 elements where we now consistently can work on in order to improve simplicity, and we see the results, and also indeed to keep the ongoing and to have the momentum towards the future. I mean, it's not like a complex set of elements we have to work on. It is 3 core elements we consistently have to work on, and we are working on.
And if I remember well, it wasn't just simplification, right? It was simplifying what is in our control. And that was the biggest difference, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because people tended to focus on what they couldn't control versus, okay, let's look at what we can control and simplify those things. And I remember there was one action you did around meetings, have less people in meetings, is that right?
Yeah. There was some guidelines around also agenda for meetings, but also for sure less people in the meetings. And there was this about what was in our control that came up when we talked about processes. Then it was in the beginning everybody else's fault, everybody else's process. So we kept on repeating, that's fine, let's deal with that at a later stage. What can we change? So that was...
I think, I mean, like you said, what is within our circle of influence instead of our circle of concern, and then go back to the basics. And we work in a matrix organization, maybe also some of the participants, and that's also that's a bit tricky from the perspective that you can have really big meetings and not everybody contributing. So that's indeed a very concrete action we were taking on, is to scrutinize the participants in meetings, and then sharply reduce the number of participants in those meetings.
And you, Niels, as the head of the region, you doing this was a really strong symbol for people, and it had some impact.
Yes, I mean, because it's a balancing act in a way, because people also feel that sometimes they have to participate without contributing, but then they can take the information firsthand into their part of the organization. And some people also see it as a recognition, of their position, of their knowledge and expertise, and this is why they should be in the meeting. But in the end, those are not the right reasons to sit in meetings with over 10, 15 participants.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the questions, and there's 2 questions that are linked to what you said. One question is around Niels. You mentioned those 3 behaviors that that were the focus of the work. And one question is, how did you, and this is to you both, who wants to pick it up, is the first question is, how did you actually promote those behaviors among the employees? How did they know? How did you measure those behaviors? And the second part of the question is, after the diagnostic, right, what was the plan? What was the action plan? But maybe first question around the behaviors. How did you promote the behaviors? How did you let people know about those?
Yeah, I can talk to that. So we learned a lesson from you, Jerome. Amplify, repeat. That stood very clear in the leadership mind. So we did a huge effort, both on all town halls, to take up examples where we have been good in prioritizing, empowering, or have been easy to do business, has changed the process, has changed something that it became easier. So those examples we brought up every time we could. Every time we traveled, there was also example mentioned for when you were within a broader audience. But then we also did it in our own team. So in the leadership team, every time we saw one of the leaders who has done an excellent effort to amplify those 3 behaviors, then we recognized it and talked to it, and the person got acknowledged for particularly that behavior in order for others to listen and learn, and hopefully then do the same. And it was actually with symbols on slides saying, now we talk about what we have prioritized. Here you have really spell it out so they couldn't misunderstand what we were trying to say.
So using stories and recognizing people's stories of what good looks like.
Yeah, and symbols. Yeah.
Yeah, very simple. And I remember Oh,
No,
yes.
you remember your home because we lifted this example to a broader audience that, of course, our sales organization was frustrated, and definitely the people who also have to support the sales organization, that we were responding to every request from the customers or potential customers. And at a certain stage, there was a customer in one of the Baltic states where they always invited us for tenders, but consistently the business would go to our competitor. And then Juan Veronis, you remember, and I was aligned with him, wrote a letter to the customer, like a very polite letter, but that it potentially is a better use of both our time, not to include us in those tenders. And that was such a strong signal to the organization that we take this serious. That in this case, prioritization is something we are really living through, and also are prepared to send that signal externally. So yeah, I think it's an example. It's a clear example of how we lifted, the good behavior. And as Henriette said, and it was also due to your work through the organization with all the workshops and interviews you had. I mean, we could easily, send out the message. These are the key elements we're going to work on. We even designed the logo, which is a stamp on our strategy house, where the three behaviors are incorporated. So yeah, I mean, we use a lot of means to get it deep into the organization.
I remember there was also the leadership forum every month or every few weeks where in a bite-sized time, so it wasn't hours, it was an hour, and it was talking about the stories, talking about the behaviors, sharing good stories, good results with people. Oh, what else in your action plan? People want to know what else did you
Well,
do?
maybe what you made us do, and it is a very simple thing, and we still do it today. And every meeting by asking, so what do we think of this agenda, and could we have done it in a different way, a more simple, more effective way? It's an example. It's a small example, but I mean, it's easy to implement, and it's all easy to stay with it. And now, when we do the any other business, we also do always this evaluation based on simplicity.
I mean, the question I remember you had that question. Is there a simpler way to do this, right? That
Yes, yes,
systematically ask yourselves.
yes.
Okay. There's another question around, which is always interesting, is how did you manage to get the leaders aligned with what you wanted to do? So what was it? Because it's so important, right? Getting the leadership on with you on the program. Tell us more. And Henriette or Niels, whoever wants to have a go.
It was quite easy to get the buy-in in the beginning. I remember, at least when I started talking about the great place to work, happy people, you of course get the interest from the leadership team. But then to keep momentum and keep them talking about the behaviors, keep them sharing the good examples, having the dialogues with the team. They all conducted 360 degrees survey for them as leaders, take in the feedback. They had coaching sessions with you, Jerome. So it was not an easy task to keep the momentum. You're busy with daily life, so you really had to put it in as a fixed agenda point, leave anything else aside, and then now we focus on this team and how we amplify the behaviors that we should. How are we doing on that? But every time we did exercises, hot chair or whatever we called it, where we got feedback, everybody loved it and it was good afterwards. But
Yeah,
you need to make a plan and keep the momentum.
no, and to add to that, Henriette, I think the leadership deeper in the organization also felt heard. And that's also, when you done the questionnaires throughout the organization, of course, what people on a daily basis experience is that we were becoming too complicated. Now became explicit, and of course, for starters, it was nice for them to see that recognition that we have to take, you have to take the bull by the horns and have to work on that. Now again, the proof points are very important to keep the momentum, and we raise some examples, maybe more in communication and in interaction, for instance, with customers, but also we have more and more examples now how we're simplifying systems and processes, because that has a true impact throughout the organization.
Absolutely. And the more so, I remember there was people at the beginning were saying, well, we cannot control the systems because we are part of a bigger organization in the region and things come from global, which we have to work with. So that work on systems was really interesting because it was what can we change in the system or the process actually ourselves.
Yeah, but there are processes within the region. I mean, an example is our sales governance, where we took a real step forward on simplifying. And I guess, Henriette, you have an example on the system HR is using to hire new people in the company, isn't it? The approval flow is
Yeah.
dramatically simplified.
Yeah, we have a success factor investors where you all know no, you don't all know, but you have to make first a position, then a requisition, and then you need to activate it and so on. And there we reduced a lot of steps that was actually not needed to make it easier for people and also faster.
Okay, thank you. Quick one for you, Niels. Shona from the audience is asking if you could repeat the 3 elements you worked on as part of the simplification. You said prioritization,
empowerment, and easy to do business with.
And easy to do business was really interesting because it had 2 elements. It was with customers, so that you would become much easier to do business with from an external point of view,
Yes.
customers and shareholders, but also internally between the different parts of the organization.
Yes, I mean, yeah, okay, and it's truly like this. I mean, we also got feedback from our customers that it's sometimes hard to do business with us, which of course is, well, that's exactly what you don't want. And we took big steps to simplify our approach with customers, including the CEO. I mean, we in this work, he's my boss. I mean, we also included the CEO, and we have found ways now also with our big offshore customers to have, you know, a very simplified way of communicating. So he uses WhatsApp, I use WhatsApp, and also the team uses WhatsApp, you know, to immediately when things are not maybe progressing in the right way, even derailing, to reach out, you know, send a message, take up the phone, and have you know, a very short lead time in order to talk to each other or communicate with each other. It's again an example, but also internally, you know, with the group functions, the region works with group functions in a matrix structure. There was also we started with ourselves, you know, elements where we could be easier to do business with towards them.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, you said something really important. You said communication and feeling heard. This was true of customers, right? Feeling heard, but also inside the organization.
Yes, absolutely.
Such an important thing, yeah.
Yes.
Question, what has been easier than what you expected and what's been harder?
Yeah, yeah.
I think what was hard was actually to make the communication plan, make the whole plan. Everybody got excited, but then when we boiled it down to now the hard work starts, it's keeping the momentum, keep the plan. When we started up the process of easy to do business and look into all of the processes in our control, there we could see it was really getting more and more difficult to get people to say, yeah, I will take that one. That's my accountability. Let me drive with this one. That created, there was a lot of meetings where we have to repeat about what was actually agreed on deliverables and what were the processes that we could really change, and then do it instead of saying it's all the others who owns this process. No, actually not. We can do it ourselves. And then it was, and I think it still is, Niels, you will know, I'm not in the region any longer, but a little bit hard to keep momentum because you easily drift in your daily busy life.
And did you? There's a question from the audience. Did you how did you deal with resistance? Were there any particular big obstacles or resistance somewhere in the organization?
No, I don't. So maybe that was on the easy part, like Henriette said. I mean, let me phrase it like this: for 6 years, Henriette and I have been working on this, and of course, and that maybe the people who dialed in also recognize. You come with, of course, statements. This is important for us. We will work on employee satisfaction and employee net promoter score, but it never became tangible. The fact that we now decided to invest serious money and time in this less tangible subject, which is so important to everybody. I think that really, I didn't notice real big resistance, but if there would have been resistance, people were, embracing that. So The resistance mostly is that, if you think it's important, then show it to us.
Yes.
By running this region-wide program, we clearly showed that it matters.
And I suppose you had identified something that everybody could see and was aligned with. So there was no pushback on why you were doing it, what you were trying to change. So that made it easier. So that's back to the assessment of what was the root cause.
But it's also while you guys went throughout the organization with the questionnaires and the workshops. So that also definitely, potential resistance was taken away because they were heard. I mean, they were part of the input and the process. So no, I think initially we had those discussions also with you and Danielle. But can it work? Because we are part of a bigger company. So can we change the culture within the bigger, let's say, cultural setup of Vestas? You convinced us that we can do it, and in the end. So it took away maybe our resistance, but in the end, we could also prove that it can work in a unit within a bigger unit. Yeah.
Yes, and there's a question with that actually. Somebody's asking, do you have any advice for a division that is part of a bigger group, how to address culture as part of a bigger group? What advice would you give them?
Well, do it. We were convinced, and also we went through all of this that it can be done. What I liked about the approach is that we still also based, the fundamentals of the cultural exercises on the corporate values. So the 4 values I mentioned are the Vestas values, and then we focused on how we can improve on those values, and it became simplicity as the leading one in the region. And that brought us success.
Yeah, to elaborate a bit further on what Niels said, we also did our stakeholder management and of course went to a group headquarters first, said we are not trying to change the culture of Vestas. We are just trying to understand how we will amplify the behaviors that we have identified, the 4 behaviors, the 4 values that Niels spoke to. So they were all on board, and actually we created some excitement, like maybe we should also look into the culture. So we were home safe on that part. But as Niels said, just don't wait for others. Start with yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was nice to see when the CEO came to our leadership days in January that he and himself has taken the initiative to open his presentation with prioritization, empowerment, and easy to do business with. So it's also what I learned. I mean, we can also, of course, also influence the bigger company with this.
I mean, one thing that you're not saying, which I suppose made it a little bit easier as well, that we found is that you were already doing lots of great things. You were doing everywhere in pockets and inside the organization. You were doing exactly what you needed to do, but it was not known, right? So a lot of the work you did was about amplifying all the good things that are already being done. So that's always an important part, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but sometimes it also helps to put it out in a big project and do a campaign and launch it and make some noise around it. That also helps.
Yeah. There's a question, anything you would do different if you had to do it again? Tough one.
Yeah, one thing strikes my mind is about really setting the team, because this is not a people and culture project alone, not at all. But it took quite some time that not all eyes was on PNC thinking they run it. No, we don't. And particularly, we should maybe have even defined some clear roles for how, when the hard work started, particularly on the processes, who does what. So
upfront clarity.
Yeah, the team charter around it and really clarify the different rules. Don't underestimate a super strong communication plan. That I would have spent some more effort on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Niels, nothing.
No, not so much. I think I got some more time to think about it. Maybe you brought quite some valuable insights to us. You would love to spend more time on that, but yeah, I mean, there's also, of course, a limited time frame which is available to do these exercises. But Yeah, I mean that's maybe the only thing. I mean, some of the valuable insights, you reach the tipping point if 25% buys into it. I mean, that was one of those. It would be great to have a targeted exercise on that to see how it works. But no, I think in general, I'm actually pretty happy with the way it worked out.
Okay, okay. And somebody asking, did you see it? So eNPS increased, which is fantastic. So that you set that up as the key metric that you wanted to see moving. So people are asking whether you've got other metrics you're following to see the change, and whether you've got other business outcomes apart from eNPS and satisfaction that you're following or that you're seeing shifting. That's what I said, that's the holy grail. That's what every organization is looking for. We invest on culture. In your case, you were able to shift the key thing that you needed to shift. Are you seeing any other impact? Anything else you're measuring?
Now we measure a lot, of course. I mean, we have our financial KPIs. It's hard to see a direct connection, I would say, but there is of course a connection. But to quantify a connection between those KPIs and eSAT and eNPS. I mean, in the same period, the company came from red figures into black figures again. But there's a lot of elements playing into that. But for sure, I mean, we needed a lot of motivation to turn around the company. And that worked out nicely, and now we are on a very steep growth path, which again needs the buy-in and intense energy of the teams, and they are providing that energy. So I don't know. It's not that but maybe Henriette has a reflection on that.
I can only share a few key numbers. The turnover is going down. That's what HR people love to see. Because that costs a fortune. So a high turnover, particularly in the service business, in the frontline workers, where you spend quite some time and money to train them, is for sure.
And difficult to recruit people too.
Yeah, very difficult. We have to educate them from other industries. And then looking at the survey figures like decision making, sense of belonging, also went up with 6-7 index points, which is also seen from an organization where we have asked 8,000 employees. That's quite a big achievement. And if you drill further down into the survey results, within particularly the frontline leadership part, there we see really, really big improvements, particularly on collaboration, sense of belonging, decision making. So that resonates really well with prioritization.
Yeah, but this adds up to this 75 N score. But that, you're right, and I guess out of was it 29 questions raised, 27 had an improved result.
Yes, all of them increased except one, and then there was one new question added. That has never ever been seen as long as we have used the Glint portal to measure employee survey results across Vestas. So that it stands out quite significantly.
And Henriette, during the process, there was also a pulse, right? We were trying to measure the momentum during when we were working with teams on the culture to see the progress. That was another measure, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's for sure. People loved or still for sure. And I can only share today, I saw a presentation from finance in NCE. And then my HR heart becomes really warm when I see on the backbone it says our foundation, and there it's mentioned prioritization, empowerment, easy to do business. And then they drilled down a ton of KPIs, but that was the foundation to improve the culture and be a good place to work where people felt more motivated.
And that's what you were measuring in the pulse, those three elements.
And that's just today that I, by coincidence, saw that slide that a colleague presented. So
nice.
It worked.
Good timing.
Yeah, music to our ears, isn't it? but that links to. I've got two more questions, and then we'll just close. The next question is somebody in the audience asked, how are you going to make it sustainable? How are you going to make sure it is being sustained? And what I'm hearing actually, Henriette, this is a good example of it being sustainable because it's part of a normal process. Anything else that you can say about making sure that you don't go back, right? And that you keep at the level that you're at?
I would let you answer that, Nils, since I'm no longer in the region. I could, of course, come up
That's a
with
good
kind of
point.
good ideas.
No, but we touched upon it. The concept is simple but powerful. I mean, the three elements we have incorporated now. Actually, as I said, in our strategy house, and but also on the other end in our day-to-day working. It is. Yeah, I mean, I think also the fact that we went so deep in the organization, there's a lot of people who also will hold us accountable for progressing on this now, because you know, it also raises expectations, so if it doesn't come top down, there is also definitely a drive bottom up. Still, I mean, also referred to by Henriette, I mean, in the day-to-day intensity of the job, yeah, you have to exemplify the messages time and again. So we strongly believe that we, with the compact concept we're working with, we can continue and we can also have results in the future. But it requires definitely the top-down attention. And that's welcome. Also the bottom-up questions and where people really demanding that we progress on it.
Yeah, and it's constant. Never give up, because
Yes.
otherwise.
Oh yeah, again, as Henriette said, what was it? Repeat. I mean, you guys have been telling that so often. I mean, that definitely stick with us. Yeah.
So last question. I don't know. Maybe Henriette, you can start on this one. It's back to our question around culture versus engagement. What's your reflections on? Okay, we thought the root cause was in culture. Do you see them still different or the same? It's something that in culture people talk a lot about. At Walking the Talk, sometimes we say don't confuse culture with engagement. But what's your view on the two topics now?
No, but I think I can really bring it to my new role as head of the Global Talent Management in Vestas, where we also set the directions within how do we work with our leaders, how do we train our leaders, and what are the messages actually that we are sending around, how should they amplify the behaviors within our values. So I for sure believe that it really matters how all of us are acting. And as Nils used to, that I learned from Nils, we all play for a full stadium every day. It's the way you park your car. It's if you cheat in the canteen, if you grab a cup of coffee in front of somebody else, if you don't put it into the dishwasher, whatever it is, all these small practical things. But for me, I'm very occupied in my new role about how do we make sure that people clearly understand when we talk to enterprise leadership or other fancy buzzwords, how do we make it practical? How do we explain it? How do they understand what does good look like? What is it that Vestas wants me to do? What are the behaviors that I should do? And then I'm totally sure if you feel you are part of something big and you feel you are part of a great culture, then you're also much more motivated. And it will play off in all the key numbers. The foundation for success is clearly our people, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I love the practicality that you bring up. It's just so important, right? Make it easy for people to understand, very practical. That makes a very, very big difference. Can I just, so thank you. I'm just looking at the time. Niels, any last word? Anything you'd like to tell the audience? Anything that we haven't mentioned and that was important?
No, but what you didn't mention, and it was a key selling argument to us, and what is also a key learning to me, that you can have a culture by design instead of having a culture by chance. That stick with me, and it still sticks with me. And I think that's where you come into play. As we said before, working with you brought us a lot. I mean, the fact that you did the initial engagement, but also you and Daniel also took us through this whole cycle. I mean, I think that's that really was super effective. I think that's something I would like to conclude with.
And I suppose what worked well in your organization was not a step-by-step approach, but an approach that was clear and following. So there was a very clear approach about what you were doing, as opposed to something that might sound like a bit fuzzy and unclear.
Yes.
Yeah, in a technically minded organization, that's very important. Well, thank you both. I mean, we've come to the end of this webinar. I would like to thank all the people in the audience. We've had lots and lots of questions, actually a lot more than what we get sometimes. So I take it as a good indicator that people were really deeply interested. I love the Vestas story. I love what you've been able to achieve. We wish you the best for the future on your continuous culture journey. We know you keep achieving amazing things, keep changing the landscape in the energy landscape in Europe and the world. This is a fantastic purpose. And for me, a very big thank you. It's been, we've enjoyed, we at Walking the Talk working with you. It's been, we've learned a lot. We always learn. You may not realize that, but we have actually learned a lot from you as well. And it's been a pleasure always. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy diaries to be with us today.
Same here. Thank you, Jeroen.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.